When was the last time you left no tip at a restaurant?
Well, I would say yesterday, because
Wow.
I have a rule. If you're standing up, there's no tip.
Okay.
That's my rule. If I'm picking up, standing up, if I'm do whatever. Now, if I'm at a bar and the guy the bartender just made me a drink, that's a little different. That's different. But for the most part, if I'm standing, I'm not tipping.
I like that. Okay. Yeah. This feeds into kind of where I wanted to go with this. And I had no idea what your answers to this question were, but it's been using your metrics. I basically follow your metrics exactly. If I'm standing, I'm not tipping. But there's asterisks to this.
Yes,
of course, and bars are sort of a separate thing anyway. But bars are a good example. I think we need to reset tipping culture. It's gotten out of control, and
I agree.
Where it was always like a little weird, but then when we had COVID lockdowns and we knew that the service industry wasn't getting paid the way that they would normally get paid for all the obvious reasons, we started tipping on everything. We started tipping on picking up takeout. We started tipping on like all these things. And I was totally fine with it. I was making plenty of money during COVID, and I was happy to share that with people that weren't. Like, it was totally fine. But that never really went away. And now we've got this weird thing where, I'm checking out at the freaking, pharmacy, and it's like, do you want to tip? And it's like, why would I? No, I don't.
Yes.
But there's that moment of like, well, is there an expectation that I should? Like all of this. So I think we need to reset it. And I love your example about bars. And I had bars on my list too, because with a bar, if I'm going up and getting one drink, and it's different when you have a tab at the end of the night versus a drink at a time, although I don't know why that is the case, but I'm acknowledging what is, not supporting it. But in the scenario where it's one drink at a time, if you go up and order a $7 beer, you're tipping them, let's say $1. Right?
Yeah, a buck or two. Yeah,
right. The flat rate for making the drink for you. If I go up and order a $17 martini, I am also tipping a buck or two. Same amount as I would tip for a beer. Now, a martini actually takes longer to make than a beer.
Or an old-fashioned or whatever somebody makes. Yeah.
But it's still, when you're doing that one drink at a time thing, the general culture, and I'm sure somebody's going to write into feedback at businessbrain.show and argue with me on this, and I love you for that. Thank you.
Yes,
please do.
Please do.
Yep. But that's kind of the standard. And I don't quite understand how we're going to fix this, but we need to reset things here, because it's just gotten out of hand where that the same, if you start looking at dollars per hour that we're spending on this, and it's like, okay, well, at one restaurant where a hamburger is $10, the tip is one price, and then at another restaurant where a hamburger is $25, the tip is a different price. For why? And I know I am asking that question rhetorically. I know we can answer that question, but I really love the tipping culture in Europe, where a tip is actually like not expected. Now, I realize that it in Europe the wages are different. Like it's a whole different thing. Here, you probably know this if you're listening to this show, there is a lower minimum wage for people that are in jobs that can solicit for tips, right? And that's great. And Shannon, technically, you can solicit for tips, which is why we pay you a lower hourly wage for doing this show. No.
There you go. At the end, I'm going to flip the iPad over. And I have just a couple of questions for you. I love how they ask that. They turn over and they go, there's just a couple of questions. And I'm like, yeah, where's the no button?
Where's the no button? Yeah.
I paid $18 for a beer at the ballpark a couple weeks ago, and you go up and they flip the thing over. It's like, no, I'm not tipping you for you to hand me a can of beer. I'm just not going to do it, especially when it's 3 times what it should be.
Right.
That doesn't mean I don't have empathy for people in lower paying jobs. There's nothing to do with that.
It's a separate thing. I love that tipping, and I'm a big fan of pendulums, right? I mean, I'm talking metaphorical pendulums here. I mean, pendulums themselves can be fine. That's not what this episode's about. Yeah. Where I believe we are at an extreme of the tipping pendulum in the USA right now, and I therefore like that, because extremes of the pendulum, when the pendulum's in the middle, change doesn't happen. When the pendulum is approaching an extreme, there becomes all this momentum and pushback, and here we are. And I mean, it's taken, we've been doing this show 12 years. We've never talked about tipping.
Yeah. Correct. And the other thing, like I was at a restaurant yesterday out on Ocean Beach in San Francisco, and when the bill came, there's two parts to this. Number one is, when I was younger, I was told, oh yeah, you don't tip on the tax. You tip on the bill. Not then. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. I don't think anybody does that anymore. Everybody just,
it's been lost. That is a lost art.
Yeah. Lost art of tipping. And then the other thing that was on this bill, it being San Francisco, and maybe some other cities have this, there was a 6% like workers fund fee. And I thought, oh, okay, well, 6%. So I take my 20% and I go down to 14%. I'm just like, okay, well, that's great. But I don't live in San Francisco, and, I pay lots of fees where I live to help my local community. Right. So it's like, I don't feel compelled to add more on. I certainly don't tip on top of the over 10% sales tax.
Yeah.
And because I live in California, and the 6% workers. So there's 16% right there on top of the bill. And then they want you to tip on top of that. And you're right. It's too much, man.
It's gotten to be, there's too much going on here. And so and it's becoming, if we had this conversation 2 years ago, we'd probably get a lot more pushback.
Yeah, I think so.
Than we would today, right?
Yeah.
But people have tired of this. It's like, how much is too much? And my daughter's getting married this week, and they live in Italy much of the time.
Oh, that's awesome! I didn't know it was this week. That's great.
It is this week. Yeah, thank you.
That's sweet.
And they have many friends from Europe that are visiting here, and it's been somewhat comical, sort of coaching them through the tipping process. And we heard that they tipped the bagger at the grocery store because they didn't know, like, who should you tip and who should you not?
Who puts that on the checkout? It's so crazy.
I know, right? But they, they didn't know, and that was the part where it was like, oh, we got to talk about this, like the fact that seemed like a thing to someone who's learning this for the first time, right? They're learning how to do it, and then they're like, I guess we tip this person too, because they're tip happy here in the U.S. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. No, we don't do that. Like, most of us don't anyway.
That's right. Yeah. I had to, last week I went to an event, and about halfway through somebody wasn't feeling great. So I had to put I got an Uber. I called an Uber for them to get a ride home. And this couple, the wife, she'd never called an Uber and never been in an Uber. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to hook you up. We'll get set. I'll get you home. And so she says, well, I'll just pay him directly. And I say, no, you won't.
No, you won't.
No, you won't. And then she's like, well, I'll do this. I'll tip him. I'm like, no, you won't. That's okay. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Right.
And so this concept, she's like, well, I can't, how does this work? What do I do? And then, so they get home and I get the thing that pops up, the Uber or Lyft is the same way. It says, how much you want to tip? And I noticed they have added a little line right below that where would you like to tip so and so. It says 100% of the tip goes to the driver. So they're not, because I know they're like DoorDash was kind of peeling off some of that to add to their ROI. But it's interesting, and I do think that it is crazy. And for it in the beginning, I felt weird pressing the no, like I was being judged.
Same.
Immediately. I was being judged.
And you probably are being judged.
Yeah. But now I'm like, they don't know who I am. These people, this is ridiculous. When it's ridiculous when they ask for the tip, like the grocery store or and the electronic checkout thing has exacerbated this, right?
That's also exacerbated. You're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And because if they're just giving you a piece of paper, it's one thing, sign off and go. And actually, and it may not sound like this, but I'm a big tipper. If you take good care of me,
right,
and the time and place is appropriate, dude, I'm happy to give you a big tip because I'm like, man, even if I'm standing up, if there was some kind of problem and you resolved it and you showed great customer service, dude, I'm all over it.